CEO Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple was on, and the way he described it, I thought was brilliant. He says right now in blockchain, we are at a chat GBT moment.
Alrighty, let's roll over into today's video breakdown. We're going to go over some updated levels on XRP's price action, taking a look at our institutional dark pool levels that we've been giving you guys accurately, covering these level-to-level updates. And then we're going to dive into some recent video clips from an individual investor. I believe his name is Ted Janis, who was one of the first individuals to write a check for Ripple back in 2012, and just going over some interesting things that he said in a recent panel discussion that he said with the CEO of Evernorth, ex-Ripple representative Ashish Birla. And then I want to dive into something that was brought up to my attention via one of the CYPRX researchers via a application that Ripple had put in for Ripple to become a national trust bank, and talk about the coming months ahead and what to be mindful of in terms of getting the official approval from the OCC. So with that being said, let's start off in today's video breakdown, just going over the technical analysis updates. In our last video breakdown, I don't know if we gave the most recently updated dark pools, but there has been an update where the past level at around $1.07 to $1.11 has now changed. And instead, there is now a fresh dark pool at the $0.0959 psychological level. So for the bullish scenario as of time of recording, because that's always what I would like to optimistically cover first, in order to see any higher prices on XRP, as of time of recording, we are operating in this bearish leg from the move from around 29 cents down into $1.03799 dark pool, where we broke this previous bearish structure and created this new A to B move. If we want to see buyers regain control right now, they are doing a decent job at absorbing sell volume and creating reaccumulation schematics, defending the dark pools where they recently defended at $1.03, became aggressive enough to push price all the way up into $1.16, where they were able to reclaim the 50 moving average on the 4-hour time frame. But we still have not seen enough buy volume come in to engulf the previous sellers that existed and defended price at $1.29, pushing price all the way down to $1.03. So ideally, in order to see buyers truly regain control on XRP's price, we need to engulf all of this sell volume. And that would be a very good indication that we could see a much higher recovery on XRP's price and get out of this witty consolidation that we've been in since all the way back at the beginning of June. With that in mind, bullish scenario number one would obviously, of course, be if buyers can defend the $0.0959 psychological level, push price above $1.16, turn it into support, and that could be the cause to make a much better attempt at breaking the high at $1.29. That would be bullish scenario number one. Bullish scenario number two would obviously, of course, be sellers continuing to defend these higher level dark pools at $1.16 to $1.09, coming back down to test the strength of the buyers at $1.03, buyers defending, reaccumulating orders, trapping sellers, and becoming aggressive enough to push price back above $1.09, turn it into support, and push price higher to make another formal attempt at breaking the high at $1.29. Bottom line is that right now, until we break back above $1.29, we are still in bearish territory operating in this previous bearish leg. So for now, this is what I'm looking forward to on XRP to see any much deeper formal recovery and get excited about higher prices on XRP. Now, to the downside, if at any point in time, right now, the last line in the sand is the $1.03 threshold. If at any point in time that threshold breaks and we start to see price trade below $1.03, that's going to open up the door for a much deeper retracement on XRP down into lower level dark pools. Right now, to the downside, our radar still has the 91 cent threshold. The second bearish target to the downside under 91 cents still on our radar is that 68 cent threshold. However, what I'm paying very close attention to is the fundamental environment, the Iran war, the tariff scare, all of the fundamentals that have been driving market sentiment risk off over the past consecutive couple of months since October of last year have not been enough to take XRP's price down to these lower level dark pools. So if we are going to see XRP's price trade beneath these levels, we are going to need to see some major fundamental catalyst that is going to create a huge risk off environment, and we have not seen that yet. So for now, I'm leaning more in favor of the bullish environment, where as long as buyers can hold above $1.03, reclaim $1.16, then we could start to make a formal attempt to see buyers break and test the strength of the sellers above $1.29. And if we can see buyers reclaim $1.29, then we can start to get excited about higher level dark pools to the upside. Those levels still do come in between $1.57 and $1.98, where buyers will have to put in some extensive work to overcome some of the sell volume that exists up here in these areas. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed these updates. Now let's get into some quick videos. So shout out to Vet for this. He streamed or reposted some of the Evernorth. I think you guys could probably find this on YouTube. Some of the Evernorth interview that took place with Ted Janis. And I really like this video clip because it just gives you an inside perspective from an early investor in Ripple back in 2012. And now this video is updated July 2026, where he talks about the inning that we're in terms of blockchain, AI, and just digital adoption in 2026. Mind you, he was an investor all the way back in 2012. And this is this gentleman's mindset. Take a second and listen.
AI, we're probably in the second inning.
Wow.
So second inning of 9 innings, very, very early. Blockchain, I'd say we are in the first or second inning of blockchain. I'll elaborate on that in a second. And then quantum, I mean, quantum is so early. I don't even think the bus has showed up at the game yet.
Yeah.
I mean, this is way early. I'm looking at where quantum is in 10 years from now. So why am I so excited about blockchain and crypto is I really think there's a disconnect. When you talk to leading lights who are at these big consulting firms, McKinsey or Bain, or you're talking to people at the big banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, certain senior leaders at these places are really rolling their eyes about blockchain. On the other side of that, you have people like Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, Abigail Johnson, who runs the largest mutual fund company in the world, Fidelity, and Adriana Friedman, who runs NASDAQ, that's the largest or second largest stock exchange in the world. And then also people in this administration, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, Paul Atkins, who's running the SEC, they're all saying the same thing, which is that all assets are going to be tokenized. It's going to start with stocks, it's going to start with bonds, but everything's going to be on a ledger in 3 to 5 years. And I just happened to be watching Fox Business News today, and CEO Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple was on, and the way he described it, I thought was brilliant. He says right now in blockchain, we are at a chat GBT moment, and I really believe that's the case. I hope that the Clarity Act, which is up, passes. I think it's got better than even odds, but even if it doesn't pass or it's delayed, I think the change I'm talking about is inevitable in the next over the next year or two.
Right. And so just coming from a gentleman that invested in Ripple back in 2012, wrote one of their first checks, to hear his mindset and his perspective now in 2026, over 15 years later, is insane to just hear that he still thinks we're in the first or second inning of this adoption curve. So hopefully that just gives you guys a realistic perspective from a long-term investor with millions of dollars at their disposal to give you guys a perspective as to where they're thinking at in terms of long term, right? So that leads me over here to something that was shared to me via the CYPRX researchers. Shout out to the CYPRX researchers for always just dropping this juicy information. And what he brought to my attention was when Ripple applied for the National Trust Bank charter, right? And what I see on the internet is the talk of Ripple applying for the Fed master account, right? So here you can see this article from CryptoRank, and then there's another article that touches on this from Yahoo Finance. And what I want to highlight is right here, where it goes on to say, let me zoom in for you all just a little bit on this, and it says, back in December 2025, Ripple secured conditional, this is important vocabulary, conditional approval from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for a national trust bank charter. What is still pending is a Federal Reserve master account, and that is the second piece, one that could actually reshape how XRP is used. But it doesn't mention the final approval and how that's still pending via what Ripple applied for back in December 2025. And so it says here, the bigger catalyst for XRP is the Federal Reserve master account, which Ripple has applied for separately right now. Ripple processes cross-border payments using XRP to move value in seconds, but banks still have to pre-fund accounts in different countries before transactions settle. That locks up cash and slows everything down. A Fed master account would let Ripple settle payments directly through FedWire and FedNow, the central bank's own payment systems, without relying on commercial banks as middlemen. That is the change that would put XRP settlement role at the center rather than at the edge, cutting edge settlement time and pre-funding cost in one move. But what this doesn't talk about is how Ripple's still pending the official approval, not conditional approval, of this OCC Charter National Trust Bank, right? So if we come over here, okay, here's when Ripple put this out, December 12th, 2025. And it says, this preliminary conditional approval is granted based on a thorough evaluation of all information available to the OCC. And this is when they approved Ripple for the conditional approval. Now, you can see it here again, just looking at the rhetoric. December 12th, 2025, OCC announces conditional approvals for 5 national trust bank charter applications. And in this, we had Circle, we had Ripple, right? And now what I want you guys to pay attention to is the final approval stage. And so what do we know what just happened with Circle in July 2026? All right, well, July 10th, 2026, we have Circle submitted its application to the OCC on June 30th, 2025. Okay, so June 30th, 2025, and then they got approved almost a year later. So think about it. Let's like June 30th, 2025, and now we're in July. So they got the final approval in July. And it says here, and received conditional approval in December. So they got conditional approval in December, just like Ripple did, building on its long-standing commitment to regulatory engagement. And what did this say? This is from the CEO, Jeremy Allaire. It says, the OCC approval is set to establish Circle's national trust, and it marks a defining step in bringing blockchain tech and digital assets into the core of the U.S. financial system, said Jeremy Allaire, co-founder and chairman and CEO of Circle. Federal oversight of our trust bank set a new standard for transparency, governance, and scale for Circle's infrastructure and unlocks a new phase of adoption where leading financial institutions can now build on public blockchains with clarity and confidence. And so this just happened in July, and we know that Ripple only has right now the conditional approval, not the final approval. And so when could the final approval come? There are no documents on the internet right now that share when final approval could happen. But what I did pay attention to is the window. The window is 18 months for final approval. And we are in that window right now. So here it says, okay, this is just a little ChatGPT search where I said, where can you find on the internet Ripple has until June 2027 to get its final approval from the OCC? It says here, the OCC granted preliminary conditional approval for Ripple National Trust Bank. It states that Ripple cannot begin operations until all pre-opening requirements are met and final approval is issued. The letter itself does not explicitly mention June 2027, but via the Wall Street Journal's report, it states that the trust bank approval allows firms to launch within 18 months, provided the satisfactory the OCC's requirements and pass the final examination. So, since Ripple's approval was issued in December 12th, 2025, that 18-month window would run until approximately June 12th, 2027. It says Reuters here confirmed that Ripple still does need the final OCC approval before commencing operations. So Ripple has until June 12th, 2027 to get this final approval. And we know that Circle just got their final approval. So I wonder if something big is coming in the pipelines in the next couple of months. Mind you, June 2027 is still almost a year away, roughly about 10 months, 11 months, right? So very huge announcements coming in the pipeline in the near future for Ripple in the coming months ahead. And I just find it interesting that Yahoo Finance highlighted this and mentioned that Ripple has the conditional approval and then instantly went to talk about how big it would be for the approval of a Fed master account, but failed to talk about how big it would be if Ripple got the final approval from the OCC for their national trust bank charter, right? So something I just wanted to highlight that is still pending for Ripple that could absolutely change the game, not only for XRP and RLUSD, but how Ripple becomes embedded into traditional finance and the core infrastructure of the institutional foundation of digital asset adoption. As you can see here, when Circle got their final approval, what did Jeremy Allaire say here? It says literally right here, this unlocks a new phase of adoption where leading financial institutions can now build on public blockchains with clarity and confidence. And so if Ripple were to get their final approval, I wonder what that would mean for institutions and institutional adoption of Ripple's technology, so on and so forth. Again, I leave that up for speculation. I just wanted to bring a date into perspective for you all, which is right now between now and June 2027. So many blessings to you guys. Hope you all enjoyed today's video breakdown. If you did, do us that favor, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the platform. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next video breakdown.